So let's start with a question. What if the single largest mass of ice on our planet just melted? Gone. It sounds like something out of a disaster movie, right? But digging into the answer shows you just how incredibly connected and fragile our world really is. Let's dive in. Now, your first thought is probably about sea levels rising and cities flooding. And yeah, you're absolutely right. But honestly, that's not even the half of it. That's just the first, most obvious piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. You see, losing Antarctica wouldn't just be one big event. It would be like tipping over the first domino in a line that stretches across the entire globe. It would set off this massive chain reaction. And I mean everything. We're not just talking about our maps and our weather. We're talking about the actual physics of the planet, from the ground we stand on to how long a day is. This is the story of a total planetary rewrite. So to really get this, we've got to change how we think about Antarctica. It's not just some big frozen continent at the bottom of the world. It's a planetary keystone. It's the master regulator holding our entire global climate system in a delicate balance. Let's just try to wrap our heads around the scale here, because it's pretty mind-blowing. A whopping 60% of all the freshwater on Earth is locked up in that one ice sheet. Just let that sink in for a second. More than half of the planet's freshwater. So what happens when you unlock all that water? Well, you get a global sea level rise of about 58 meters. That's nearly 200 feet. And that number is the key to understanding the very first and most catastrophic ripple effect. Okay, so here it is, the first great ripple. As that absolutely unimaginable amount of water pours into the oceans, the map of our world as we know it gets violently and permanently redrawn. Entire places we know today would just stop existing. Take Florida, for instance. We're not just talking about some flooded coastal towns. We're talking about the entire state just being gone, completely submerged. Hop across the Atlantic to Europe, and it's the same story. Countries like the Netherlands and Denmark, who've spent centuries becoming masters of holding back the sea, well, that fight would be over. They'd lose. And this isn't just a story about the West. Two of the most important, most crowded, and most fertile regions on the entire planet, the Nile Delta in Egypt and the Mekong Delta in Southeast Asia, they'd be swallowed by the sea. But this isn't just about lines on a map. It's about people. The human cost is almost unthinkable. We're talking about displacing more than a third of the entire human population. The whole east coast of the US, huge parts of the UK, basically all of Bangladesh, and the massive river basins in China and India, all facing an existential threat. As terrifying as all that flooding is, it's really just the opening act. The second ripple takes us beyond geography and deep into how our planet works. Because losing Antarctica doesn't just add water, it completely breaks Earth's thermostat. To get why, you need to know about something called the albedo effect. It sounds fancy, but it's really simple. Bright white surfaces, like ice, act like a mirror and reflect sunlight back into space. Dark surfaces, like the ocean, just soak it up like a black t-shirt on a sunny day. Right now, Antarctica is a giant planet-sized mirror reflecting away most of the sun's energy. But if you replace that mirror with dark blue ocean, the planet suddenly starts absorbing up to 90% of that heat instead. You kick off this terrifying feedback loop where warming just accelerates more warming. And at the same time, the engine that runs our oceans just dies. You see, the cold, salty, super dense water sinking around Antarctica drives this massive conveyor belt of currents that moves heat all around the globe. If you dump a giant layer of less dense freshwater on top, it stops that sinking process cold. The engine seizes, the distribution of heat and nutrients grinds to a halt, and global weather patterns go completely haywire. And this is where things go from climate science into something even more primal, geophysics. The third ripple doesn't just mess with the weather. It physically changes the planet itself, right down to its core. That ice sheet is so unbelievably heavy, we're talking tens of millions of gigatons, that it has literally pushed the entire continent down into the Earth's crust. So what happens when you take all that weight off? The land springs back up, rebounding by hundreds of meters in some places. That kind of isostatic rebound would trigger enormous earthquakes and wake up volcanoes that have been sleeping for ages. And here's the truly mind-bending part. Think about a figure skater spinning.
When they pull their arms in, they speed up. The Earth is kind of the same. By moving trillions of tons of mass from the South Pole and spreading it all over the globe, we would actually change the planet's balance. We'd literally slow down its rotation and make every single day a tiny bit longer.
But wait, there's one more geological time bomb. Antarctica is a giant carbon freezer. Locked away in its permafrost is an amount of CO2 and methane that could rival everything humanity has released since the Industrial Revolution started. Thaw that out, and you release a carbon bomb that could push our atmosphere back to some kind of prehistoric hothouse state.
So you've got a redrawn map, a broken climate, and a physically altered planet. The final ripple is the one that brings it all home. It's what happens when all of these forces come crashing down on us, on our global society. And the result? Well, it's potentially the end of civilization as we know it.
The reality would be grim. We're talking over 2 billion climate refugees fleeing coasts, tens of trillions of dollars in assets and infrastructure just gone, underwater. The world's great breadbaskets, all those fertile deltas, turned into salty, useless marshes. What do you think happens then? Nations collapse, and brutal wars break out over what little habitable land is left.
What we'd be witnessing isn't just a catastrophe. It's a geological transition. It's the end of the age of ice, the very same stable period that allowed human civilization to even exist in the first place.
I think this quote just captures it perfectly. The event would not annihilate the Earth, but it would extinguish the era of human stability. The planet itself would carry on, but the world we built, the one based on predictable seasons and coastlines that stay put, that world would be gone forever.
The Earth has been ice-free before. It's been a hothouse planet. It will find a new balance. It always does. So the ultimate question this whole scenario forces us to ask is a pretty simple one. The planet will survive this transformation. But in a world so profoundly and violently changed, could we?